Compose navigation integrates perfectly with bottom navigation so that you can easily go to different parts of your application by selecting the options on your bottom navigation. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create a compose navigation and integrate it with bottom navigation. So let's get started by creating an Android application and implement our bottom navigation. I open Android Studio. We wait for the window to appear, and I create a new project. Empty compose activity. Next. I name it compose bottom navigation, and I save it in the course directory. Minimum SDK is API 21. I press finish and wait for the project to be created. Alright, our project has been created. As the first step, I go to Gradle scripts and add the dependency for navigation to my Compose app. So build.gradle from the app module, and at the end of the list of dependencies, I add implementation Android X dot navigation navigation compose, and for its version I think it's around 240 alpha 9, but still I can use the help of Android Studio. You can always search for the latest versions of Jetpack libraries on developer.android.com/jetpack. And yes, a newer version of this library is available. I select change to the latest version. Also, there's an update available for Compose version, so I go to the main build.gradle file and update that version too. I update it to 102 and press sync now. Alright, the project is synced and I can go back to main activity to create my bottom navigation. First, I enter presentation mode from the view menu, appearance, enter presentation mode to have a bigger view for our presentation. And then I get rid of the composables added by Android Studio and also the content inside the theme. I create a composable to hold my main screen. So comp, and I'm gonna name it main screen. Inside this main screen, I'm supposed to create my bottom navigation. I can also make it a preview because it doesn't take any parameters. And then, because we are going to create a bottom navigation, we will need a scaffold, but that scaffold is gonna need a navigation controller. So I create a navigation controller, val nc equals remember nav controller. remember nav controller. And I'm gonna call this main screen inside set content, so that when I run my application, it will show the UI created by main screen. And for my main screen, I'm gonna create a scaffold, because bottom navigation that we are supposed to create works better and works best as part of a scaffold. And scaffold, for your information, if you are not that familiar with it, scaffold is a structure, is a standard structure for creating application structures and window structures in Compose applications. So I create a scaffold, and scaffold has different parts to it. It has different parameters that we can specify. Some of them are important for us in this application, and we will leave the other ones as skip them. For example, we have top bar and bottom bar, which we will use in this application. We will use top bar to show the application's title and bottom bar to show the bottom navigation. In fact, bottom bar will contain our bottom navigation. So top bar, for top bar, this is going to be my top bar. And bottom bar, like this. For top bar, I'm going to simply use a top app bar. This is a composable from Material Design Library. So there's two ways to call top app bar. In fact, after I import it, you can see that there are two overrides of this composable. I'm gonna use the first one, which has a title. So title, and for the title, I'm gonna use a text composable and show the application's title. String resource, I'm gonna use string resource to load a string resource, or that string.app name. I'm gonna load the application's name from the string resources. Next, I'm gonna create my bottom bar. For the bottom bar, because this might be a little bit long, I'm gonna create a composable that will hold my bottom navigation and then call it here. I can, of course, create the bottom navigation directly inside this, but I prefer to move it to another composable. So I name it my bottom bar, my bottom navigation. In fact, my bottom bar, let's call it. And because it will need the navigation controller, I'm gonna pass navigation controller to it as well. And then, because it hasn't been created yet, I press Alt and Enter on it, and then select Create Composable Function, my bottom bar. And yes, it creates it. Inside the composable, I'm gonna create my bottom navigation. Bottom navigation. And you can see that bottom navigation has different options, but the important one that we will deal with is the content part. So I'm gonna remove the parameters parentheses, because we don't need it, and only fill in the bottom navigation part. Here's where we will specify the list of items that will be displayed on our bottom navigation. Therefore, we will need a list of screens. It's better to use a sealed class to represent these items, and it's the recommended way. So next I create a sealed screen class. I go to Alt 1 to open Project Explorer, and then in the package level equal with the level of main activity, I'm gonna create a new class, Kotlin class. It's a sealed class, so I select its type and I'm gonna name it screen. And this is going to have several options, several fields. This class, which is called screen, is going to have several parameters when constructed. One of them is title, one of them is root, one important one is root. So val root string, and val icon. For the icon, I'm using an image vector type, and also we are going to have a title, val title string. And then, because sealed classes are limited in the hierarchy, we can now create the children of this sealed class that will be known at compile time, and there will be a limited number of children for this screen class, only those that we create now. So screen has a child named home. I'm gonna create a child named home. It's gonna be an object because we will only need one instance of that screen, object home, and it inherits from a screen. For its root, I'm gonna use home, and for its icon, I'm gonna use the home icon from the material icons package. Icons, and you can use the default group or from the outlined group. Outlined, I'm gonna use from outlined, and then home. Let's import icons and home, and for the title, home screen. Next screen, I'm gonna create a screen of a profile, and again it inherits from the screen class, and it's gonna have profile as its root, and for its icon I'm gonna use icons outlined dot person to represent the user profile, and for the title I'm gonna use profile or profile screen or user profile screen. Next object, let's create a screen for notifications. Object notifications, and screen is the child of screen. It has a root of notifications, and it's gonna have an icon of icons.outlined.notifications. And notifications screen for its title. Okay, now we have created our 3 screens. Let's go back to our main activity. I close the left part, and outside the main screen composable, I'm gonna create a list of screens. In fact, I'm gonna create a list and put in all the 3 screens that I have created. So val main screens list of, I create a list of those screens and then mention those screens here. Screen dot home, screen dot profile, and screen dot notifications. These are the 3 screens that we will use. And then in the bottom navigation, I'm gonna iterate over those 3 screens. So I say for screen in main screens, for every item in the list of my screens, create an option on the bottom navigation. So I create a bottom navigation item here, bottom navigation item, and as you can see, this composable has several parameters that we need to fill in, like selected and on click. It also has icon as well as title, label in fact, and for selected, first we need to decide when the item will be considered selected. In fact, we need to consider and we need to think whether one item in the hierarchy, in our current hierarchy, is equal to the root of our screen. If the root of one of our items in the hierarchy is equal to the root of our current screen, then we consider that option or that screen to be our current screen. Therefore, it needs to be highlighted as the current screen. So here we need our current backstack entry to extract that information. Therefore, in the beginning of my bottom bar, I get the current backstack entry, and I need it as a state. Val current backstack entry, and I get it with delegate, and I extract it from my nav host controller. nc current backstack entry as state. This will give me the current backstack entry as state. And then I get the current destination from this variable, val current destination, current backstack entry dot destination. And because it's nullable, I need to use safety operator here. Current destination, now I have it, and then I say in the selected parameter, I say current backstack current destination dot hierarchy not any. I use the any function here because I know that hierarchy is a sequence, and any will allow me to check whether any of the items in this hierarchy or in this sequence are equal to the item that I will specify. If it's equal, then it will return true. So if I know that each one of these are a destination. In fact, if I hover with my mouse here, you can see that it's a sequence of nav destination, and each destination has a root. Therefore, I say it.root equals my current screen's root. Screen.root. But as you can see, I have used safety operator here because these might be nullables. Current destination as well as hierarchy might be nullable. Therefore, for the value that we need here, it returns a boolean that is nullable, but we need a simple boolean type. To convert it to boolean, I simply make it equal to true. Like this. I compare it with true, and this solves the error that we were getting. After completing this part, I go to unclick part, and here is also very important. We decide where to go when the option is selected from the bottom navigation, and I use my nav controller to navigate to the screen's root. This is enough for a working bottom navigation. However, the navigate function has also some options like nav options builder. We can use this version of navigate, and there are some important information that we can specify for the system here. For example, when we are navigating to the specified route, we can pop up to the start destination in that hierarchy, so that we don't return to previous screens that we don't need to return to. So pop up to, we need to get nc.graph navigation controller .graph.find start destination. I find the start destination and then specify its ID. This way I pop up to that destination. This means that I remove destinations before the start destination from the backstack. However, I save their state. This way, when I click an item on the bottom navigation and then I select the back button, then I go to the first destination in the bottom navigation, and I don't go to a very long path of routes that I need to press the back button again and again, because the unnecessary destinations have been removed from the backstack, and I will show you this in action, of course. And also, we want a single instance of the screen that is selected. So launch single top. We don't want to create multiple copies of the screen that we want to open. So I set it equal to true. And also, when we are going to a screen that was already open, we have previously visited that screen and we have saved its state, we can restore its state. This is also important. And the on-click part is done. Let's move to the icon part. In the icon part, I use an icon composable to represent the screen's icon, screen.icon, with a content description. I can specify the name of the parameter, but I skip it. For content description, I can simply use the title. And for the label, I'm going to use a text composable, screen.title as its text. And then the last part, bottom navigation item. We created our bottom navigation, and I removed the lambda, the trailing lambda, and my bottom navigation is ready. Of course, it will not work yet because these destinations that we navigate to do not exist yet. Let's see what we have so far. I'm gonna run the application on the emulator. Let's wait for the application to be built and launched on the emulator. Alright, as you can see, our application is running and we can see the options added to our bottom navigation. Of course, if we click it, our application will crash because the destinations do not exist yet. So, for example, I select user profile screen and it crashes. So let's go and complete our destinations by creating our composable navigations. Before that, I'm gonna shorten the items as titles that I have used. Those titles are a little bit long, so I go to my screen class and shorten them a little bit, the titles, because they are displayed in the bottom navigation. They would be better off to be short. And back to our scaffold. In the body of our scaffold, I'm going to create the composable destinations and the compose navigation. So there's a padding values passed to us here. So I pass it to the body of the scaffold, and then I'm gonna create my compose destinations here inside a nav host. Nav host for nav controller, I'm gonna use this nav controller. And for the graph, I'm gonna build a graph with lambda composable, because we haven't specified the start destination. I use it, start destination. For start destination, I'm gonna use the home screen's root. So screen.home.root will be my start destination, and that home screen will be part of my destinations, will be one of my destinations in fact. So screen.home.root here, and composable screen dot, the next one is profile, and then root, and then the next screen dot notifications dot root, and also we can use our padding values. As you can see, there's a modifier for our nav host, so I can use it. Modifier dot padding. I import modifier, I import padding, and I use the padding values that has been passed to us. And composable, for the first home screen, I'm gonna create a home screen. So home screen, and then profile screen, and notifications screen, and for the home screen I'm gonna create a composable named home screen. So I press Alt and Enter on it and select create composable function home screen. I do the same for profile screen, and then for the notifications screen. And to make some simple screens, in fact, I'm gonna create a composable that creates some generic UI. I'm gonna name it placeholder, and it's gonna take a title, an icon, so title string, and icon image vector, as well as a content if required. So for the content, which will be an optional parameter, of course, it's going to be composable type, and it's gonna be a lambda unit, and it's gonna be optional, so I add a default value of empty lambda. And then I'm gonna put them inside a column. I'm gonna display these options, the title and icon, inside the column. For the column, I'm gonna use a modifier, and fill max size, and I'm gonna use a horizontal alignment so that I center align all the items horizontally. Alignment dot center horizontally, and then I use a text composable to show the title, and then an icon to show the icon with the content description of title I can use, and then finally the content, if some content has been passed to us. As you can see, content is being used in a column scope, so I also specify that here so that I limit the options that can be used on the content. It's gonna be only usable in a column scope. So column scope dot parentheses, I import column scope so that the user knows where they are going to pass their content to. They are going to pass their content to a column scope. And for the text, the title, I'm gonna make it a little bit big. I can do that with modifier or with a style. Let's do that with style. Material theme typography dot h3 I'm gonna use with a text align of dot center. You might think that I'm doing these in vain. In fact, I'm going to save some time by creating only one screen and then using this placeholder for all of these screens, just with different parameters. And then for the icon, let's use a modifier with a modifier that I can use to increase the size of the icon. Modifier dot fill max size with a fraction of the screen size. So I'm gonna use 0.3f, fraction of the screen for the size of the icon. And then for the content, nothing. Content is fine, but only for also for the text I can also use a padding. Modifier dot padding. Padding 16.depth will be fine. Alright, now let's use our placeholder to create the UI for our different screens. For our notifications screen, I'm going to use placeholder with the title of screen.notifications.title, and for its icon I'm going to use screen.notifications.icon. For profile screen I'm going to use placeholder with the title of screen.profile.title, and for its icon I'm gonna use screen.profile.icon. And for the home screen I'm gonna use placeholder with the title of screen.home.title and icon of screen.home.icon. Now all my destinations are ready and I can navigate to them by selecting an option on the bottom navigation. Let's run our application and see the output. Alright, as you can see, now we have our bottom navigation and also our default destination is being displayed in the content section of our scaffold. And because home screen is currently selected and we are currently in the home screen, it's being highlighted as the current destination. And if I go to profile, you can see that it becomes highlighted. Of course, the highlight might not be very significant, but still you can distinguish it from other available options on the bottom navigation. Notifications, profile, and home. Note that you can have subsections and sub-destinations for each of these options that you have in your bottom navigation. In fact, what I mean by that is that you can have destinations inside each of these destinations. And for that, I'm gonna assign you a work or an assignment to further explore the options that you can create and implement with bottom navigation. And using what I have told you in previous video about nested navigation and also what we talked about in this video, I want you now to create another option on the bottom navigation called More, and for it I want you to create two other destinations inside the More section, so that when the user selects the More option here, they see two buttons here, and when they select those two buttons, they go to two other destinations. For the two buttons, you can name them as you wish. For example, you can name one of them Gallery and the other Settings. And when the user selects each of those buttons, they go to a relevant screen. For example, by selecting the gallery, they go to a gallery screen. Of course, you can use placeholder to create them as well. I don't want you to create complex screens. Just I want you to explore and experiment a little bit more with the bottom navigation and compose navigation, and therefore you will add another option here called More, as I said, and when that is selected, you will see a screen here that has two buttons, and those two buttons in turn go to two other screens. So that's it for bottom navigation and compose navigation. I hope that you liked this video, and I see you in the assignment.